And here we go again. Time for another episode of the Funky Marketing Podcast. And today we're talking about the topic that I love very much. It's something that helped me a lot, and it's something that I, from time to time, do for the companies. So we're going to talk about how can SaaS founders raise their company's valuation by becoming the leading voice in their product category. So there's a lot of things over there to unpack. And my guest today is Belen. She's ex-Saas Chief Storyteller. I love that. She's been growing personal brands for B2B SaaS founders from Salesforce, Zendesk, ServiceNow, Google, IBM, and many others. And we're going to get into nuances of all of it. So, Belen, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Nemanja. Happy to be here.
I was just talking to a friend of mine who was here in the office when we rescheduled, and
Oh
he was
yeah,
asking, "Who are you recording the episode with?" And I told him, what happened, and he was like, "Oh my, it was like a month ago or something like that."
yeah. That's funny because I had a lovely incident with my shower leaking to my neighbor. So I mean that's kind of fixed now, thank God. And then I went on vacation, as you know. So yeah, we finally made it, which is good.
Yeah, it's good. So tell me and the audience a little bit about your background. I said some of those things, but what I would like to know the most, when was the time that you decide to go and do exactly this thing that you are doing now?
hmm Yeah, happy to. So I've been doing what I'm doing right now, which is growing founder brands or personal brands for mostly founders, but also the C-suite for around a year. But before that, my experience has been in the from enterprise tech to also kind of a scale up software company. So my last company, I was a chief storyteller. So what does that mean? It's a bit different from like a typical CMO or things like that, where instead of having a very marketing focus, it was how do we tell the stories of both the buyers, so the real stories of either customers of the company or also the people working at the company, from the executive leadership team to also some people that are, customer facing or product facing, to really humanize the company. Because everyone has heard it a bunch of times, people buy from people. So what better way than to use storytelling in order to enhance a company? So that's a bit of my background. Why I decided to do this is, at the same time I started to grow my own personal brand, and I saw how important it is, the kind of different opportunities I was getting. And I got some interest from people saying, hey, can you do the same thing you're doing for me? And these were quite successful C-level execs that are very known in their own realm, what I call in their internal sphere, right? They're very well known in big companies, but outside their reputation doesn't really translate. So from there, I switched over to also really working with founders because I saw they have the subject matter expertise. They have a lot of stake, in terms like with their company brand. So a happy medium. So that's kind of my background. But well, I'm sure we'll delve a lot more later.
Yeah, I love that. And I was thinking, like, when was the first time that somebody reached out to me based on the content that I'm putting out, those kind of things? It was, I don't know, like 10 years ago, something like that, when I was the first ever GM and the first time for me to be a GM in a company. And we didn't do anything here in Serbia in local market. It was Canadian Serbian agency. Most of the work that we did was on the US and Canadian market. And basically, a biggest groupation, media groupation in Europe, reached out to me and said, "Hey, Nemanja, a person recommended you. She said that you're not working with Serbian companies." So, and I tried, and I guess, like, you're not gonna reject us, right? From that
hmm
perspective. And then when I went back, like, I didn't know that person who recommended me. She was just following what I'm posting, the results, those kind of things. She basically went to work, I think, in the search metrics in Berlin, and they asked her who should we get to help us with the SEO and SEM, and she said go for Nemanja. Right, so they realized, there's a lot of things to unpack here. And one thing that I'm always saying, there is always somebody watching what
Yeah.
we do, no matter if we know it or not. It can be offline, it can be online. I mean, I got the job by talking at the conference, youth conference, and 2 years later they reached out to me and say, "Hey, we are working in an agency. What do you know about marketing?"
Yeah. I love it.
It's always kind of strange and funny how things unpack and people don't know that. And especially, looking at the founders and looking at even now the older people for years in a business, in B2B, they are known in their own realms, in the niche, in the industry, with people they are talking about, and they have no idea that if they make themselves visible, it will be a completely new game for them, and seems like like a new life. Let's call it like that.
Yeah. And that's actually where I'm still very passionate about, which is even if you take away, you don't have to be. I know we're focusing on SaaS founders or SaaS like CXOs because that's something that I'm very passionate about. But the other part is if even if you're working at a company, right? The power of more people outside your company knowing you through content creation is extremely powerful. And actually, and if you're creating content, more people within your own four walls of your company will also know you, right? Just because, especially if you're like in a bigger company, and whether it's, that person knowing, okay, Nemanja focuses on this, or Bruce was talking about he went to this event and took these takeaways. That means he's familiar with this, and can you get pulled into a project? And people really underestimate the ripple effect of what content can do for you, also just for your career, even if you don't want to be an entrepreneur or a software founder. So I love that story because I'm sure there's been a bunch of those since 10 years ago for you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, definitely. Look, one of the things and one of the obstacles that I see, and maybe we can start with that, is you know founders looking up, or the CXOs looking up at some of the familiar faces from their LinkedIn feed,
Hmm.
from all the PR websites and everything, where those people are getting traction on their posts because their companies are huge now, and they are in the news, and that's where they get the traction, right? But they are not posting barely anything. They're resharing posts from the company pages, and those, because those people can do that at that moment and on that stage, right?
Yeah.
And so founders who are just starting the game, they look up to them, and they're creating a totally like a false perception of what they need to do and how those things work.
Yeah. I agree. And I think that is the content game hole that you can put yourself into, right? But what I remind founders and anyone that's creating content is you have to start with your audience first, right? And then work backwards instead of saying, I need to hit a certain level of fame or followers or likes or all these things that won't matter to you, right? But if you're starting, and yeah, if you're Elon that's posting a thumbs up, but you're not saying anything, of course that person is good, or even a Fortune 500 company. Like that person is not saying anything really interesting. They posted an article and they'll get thousands of likes just because one of the sheer level of how big the organization is, right? It could be tens of thousands of people. That's just how numbers are. And it's just some people that have notoriety. But, you know, you don't have to play in that playing field. It's like, okay, if you can work with your audience backwards, what do I want to say? What pain points do they have? That will eventually work. It's for sure. But yeah, I know what you mean. We've all been there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the grass is always greener on the other side, but they forget the timing and the size and all those other things.
Yeah,
So I guess you don't work with founders who already aren't aware that they need to invest in their personal brand.
no.
Good,
It's
good.
it's not my mission statement. I'm not here to convince anyone that personal branding, matters or no.
Exactly. So that was actually the intro to my next question. So if they already know that they need to invest in that and they started working with you, so what are kind of the first steps that they need to look for to start working and building up on that?
Yeah. Usually the founders that I work for are like in, let's say, Series A to Series B startups, right? So first of all, they have the product market fit. They kind of already understand their customer pain points. Their services are validated, products are validated. they're profitable, or at least they're not pre-revenue, anything like that. That's what some of the things that's important for me. And also usually they have a few one or a couple people that are already writing, within their company, whether it's like, of course, the company page is active, but the founder might be trying to do something. They're not
Hmm.
fully starting from a blank slate. And what I come in is actually helping them, either directly working with the founder, but often very much working with the person that's writing on their behalf, because that happens a lot actually. And it's actually, how do we improve what you're doing? How do you make sure that you're understanding and asking the right questions from the founder? Because my biggest strength is actually getting the right insights from the founder connected to what they want to achieve, with the customer in mind, with their company's goals in mind, right? So I have frameworks that I help the writer and whoever's on their team to get the right insights from them. And then I make sure that I walk through what they're posting and really guide them throughout the engagement. So we're saying, okay, how hard, what are you trying to say, and is it actually resonating? And the writing piece, it definitely has to be someone that's already started, and that's what I've learned along the way. Right, from an entrepreneur perspective, but it's more on, what are you trying to achieve? Is it you have an investment round coming up? Is it you realizing that a lot of your issues internally come from customers not understanding some of your sales processes, or where are we? So that dictates then the work that I do with them. But it's mostly on that consulting, advising piece, on making sure what they're writing, what they're publishing is actually coming from a good place, that the insights actually coincide, and then really helping them refine what they're putting out.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, knowing, which questions to ask and what do you extract from them is basically essential to what will you get out of it. Because usually
Huge.
the founders are the people who have the vision, who have been there, they know the product, they know the audience. So there are a lot of things that you can extract from them. Now all depends how you set up the goals and the direction where you want to go.
Yeah.
um, and it was I always remember those first times that I did the same, and it was like, we need to start with some of the basic things, because usually the people I work with, they didn't start anything, so they knew that
Mm,
they need to do something, so we needed to create kind of a roadmap to guide them so they can envision it, and then we go step by step. But the popular psychology questions, I
yeah.
always ask them first, because they didn't do anything before that, and I need to see what they are all about.
Yeah. How did you find that? Because, if they haven't started much, how do you reckon, I don't want this to be me interviewing you, but I'm generally, interested of, how do you then, kind of determine, okay, this person, from their answers, I can see that they're like the right fit, or I can help them as much as I can. Because especially if someone has not really started on their marketing efforts, let's say, which is, if they're like coming from a blank slate, it can be extremely taxing to get them forward.
Yeah. There is one important thing that I usually work with teams. So it's usually like an enterprise or a mid-sized company that has a lot of departments. So I start with the, I don't know, it can be director of internal marketing, or it can be the person who they look up as the leader, right? I start from that person, because if she or he doesn't get involved, nobody
Yeah.
will. So I start from that size, and then I'll unpack it step by step. But I ask them, who you are, what do you do, what can you teach, who can you influence, those things from the start. And then regarding their career, I also ask them, all the stuff that I would ask like B2B company if they want to do marketing now.
Mm,
From that perspective, what would people go to look for and search when they look for your name? uh, you know who are the competitors, what do they do, those kind of stuff. But I always end up creating a roadmap where I have like the presence, past, presence, and the future. And that's how I usually pack up the content things. So it's like the past is experience until now. So who they
Mhm.
look up to, what did they learn, how did they grow, maybe past experience in different companies. The presence is what do they do day to day. And then we have the future, which is basically point of view and the way they see things differently. And it's easier for them to kind of, when they have all of this, it's like pre-post 3 topics per week. If you look at a month, it's like 12. And then, basically we create for, let's say 3 months. So they don't have the pressure, we need to put something out there tomorrow. And,
Yeah,
when they say, oh, I have 3 months to come up with other stuff, then it's much easier. And basically then somebody takes over my role of, asking questions, those kind of things. We set up the things and it goes. But what you say, you need to know what do you need to ask them from month to month. It's totally different things the company is developing. They have different goals, and the person has different goals as well.
yeah, 100%. And I think that's why it's important to stay aligned with their own roadmap. And what's interesting, sometimes it's like then you will notice which companies or which leadership teams also have clarity, which is interesting, right? Like I've worked with many different leadership teams post now as an entrepreneur, but also when I was fully employed, right? That's one of the things I really enjoy and the different dynamics. But it can also get a little bit complicated when you're creating content because that's what you need the clarity in the beginning. Okay, how much true direction do you have? And if you don't, it's fine to be honest for now. And then what we can do is make sure that we have a good baseline. And that's what I mean of like being a leading voice in their product category, unless you're doing major changes in terms of your, product suite or something, that will not change. So that kind of content will always stay evergreen, and you're making sure that you're building that authority in terms of, okay, you are in the recruitment space for health tech workers, okay, then we can make sure that you're still being that authority, and then other things might fluctuate.
Yeah, I mean, it's extremely important to determine the goals of the company on one side and the goal of the person on the other side, and how do they combine and align with each other, right?
Yeah.
So especially, I had like teams of 40 people and teaching them how to use LinkedIn, right? The goal,
Oh,
they were building the unicorn, and the goal was for them to be more visible so they can get more people to apply for the open positions, because they were opening like a new market, even the smallest one, each month. That was
wow.
kind of the goal. Not China, but maybe a small Balkan country, all depends how it goes, or
Yeah.
small like US country. And from that perspective, they were measuring everything in the number of people inside the company, because they were going for the IPO, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, so that's what you need to know because it then determines your biggest thing is actually your content needs to revolve around, maybe a little bit more in company culture and like attracting talent instead of focusing solely on your products. Which, and even if you're talking about like in terms of your products, there are still ways that you can highlight the type of people you want to recruit, right? Like if it's more customer experience people and customer success managers, then your highlight. So yeah, it's exactly that. So knowing the goal is so critical.
Yeah, I gotta tell here, which can be the bad outcome of it. And
Mm,
we had it here. It
okay.
was, they made basically, we have sales, we have marketing, we have C-level executives, we have HR, but, sales was doing another training with that. So they kind of,
Yeah.
went through it. Marketing was pretending that they know everything, as they always do. But the engineers, they thought, aha, personal branding, we are clever people, these guys trying to teach us something that can be useful for us. So they
Ah,
they they became more visible, and marketing and sales aren't doing their part of the homework, so they are not becoming visible. And from that perspective, other companies started pinging the engineers to come
engineers.
work for them.
Ah, yeah, you get poached.
Exactly. So basically, we try to kind of go in a different way, meaning the engineers, talk about board games. Like we all love board games inside our department. If somebody comes and that person doesn't like playing board games, he will be bored. We will hate him. So we're going to talk about board games, right? From that perspective. So it can go in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. It's a maybe not such a great thing for the company, right? Of course, if you're then getting pinged, but at the end of the day, that's also not something you can control, right? At the end, your company has to be well set up and everything else, but that is a side effect of personal branding, which I talk about a lot. Like you will get more attention, but companies that are restricting their employees from posting or being very, censorship heavy, that is not doing you any favors because those employees won't stick around either way. So if you're investing in them, you shouldn't fear them getting poached because all of a sudden they're more visible on LinkedIn. You should actually see the other benefits that are outweighing, which is more employees at your company posting also means that other prospects are seeing it, right? Prospects are not always just following, or even if, just the founders or like someone super high level. Sorry to break it to you, like, you know, LinkedIn is not your, internal team meeting where your title matters over everything. So, yeah, it's a super interesting story, though I've seen this happen as well.
Yeah. So tell me, what are kind of the first small things that you noticed when you actually enroll the founders and you start pumping out the content, engaging? What are some of the first things that you see over there? For example, from my side, what I see, what I always tells them, like in the first couple of weeks, you will just be more visible, which means that whatever you did before or didn't do before will be visible and we'll know that will be the result of it.
Yeah, what I've seen, already in the first couple weeks, month, let's say, is that founders and also sales teams are surprised by the number of people that mention X person was posting on LinkedIn, and this is actually how I found you guys, and that's how I landed in the demo, right? Especially for B2B companies, I think people feel okay. It has to go the traditional way, which is we have a business dev team and we've been nurturing this long-winded also marketing campaign, and they're surprised that big prospects would actually come through a demo through LinkedIn content, especially because I'm working with more B2B and product-led companies or product focused, which means sales focused companies, which have a bit more longer deal cycles, right? That do require a demo with the person rather than very quick B2B SaaS, software that you can technically buy from one and
Hmm.
then buy for your own team. So what I've seen that founders are actually surprised by, oh, there's actually real tangible monetary value coming in very quickly. But it's very hard to explain that or really show them, right, in real marketing dollars, which is why personal branding is actually sometimes tough to sell because they're like, okay, show me exactly what's going to happen. It's like, no, not really, because it's not paid marketing. I can't target people for you. So that's been a really nice change, which is, oh, I see what you're doing now. It's not all fluffy stuff that eventually in 3 years it's gonna help, it's gonna pan out. I'm seeing things that can translate into real, hard cash. So that's been nice.
Yeah, I always say, there are a couple of things that we can see, who's visiting the profile, who's liking, who's reacting from the first time. Are those the people that we actually want to have over there?
Yes.
Right. So they can, that can be some of the things because they were like, aha, these guys from that company, I know them. That's great. Like
Yeah.
some of the smallest things. And I even saw like in the first week, we had a client. What happened is that somebody from Google Docs team approached them and told them, can you, it was the CTO of the company, can you come and actually do the workshop about user onboarding? Because it was user guiding the company name from
Hmm.
Turkey, and basically that's what they did. Their product is doing that.
Not
Right. So
bad.
that was kind of okay, we are on the right track.
Yeah, I think that's a great example because that is for sure one of the things true, which is these signals, these in the DMs or in the comments, which is like, whoa, We of course we say that we're 6 people removed, but how cool is it that this person or this company is reaching out, or things like that does tend to happen. And also just the signals from comments, which then turn into, oh, we see that a few people have been asking about this specific feature. We didn't really think that that was so clear. Can I take that and tell it to my product team? Right? So those things start happening much quicker than most people realize, especially if you're being pretty strategic and, specific in the beginning as you're posting.
Exactly, exactly. But one thing I'm interested in, and probably people listening, is usually when we say, personal brand, it means we need to produce some kind of content, right? And then it is, okay, we already eliminated the thing, do the founders need to post themselves or no? I guess they need to engage because they know the topic. When it comes to the content, how do you approach that part? Because usually I always like to ask them, what can you produce? What kind of content suits you? Where are you the most comfortable with? It's the, we record and you get the text, or it's the video, or it's sometimes audio, or it's something else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I take a slightly different approach that most of the content that I work with is written. I think eventually it will be nice to have both video and written, but from a pure searchability perspective, it is nice to have written content, right? Just because from an SEO, LinkedIn does rank, maybe not as high as YouTube or things like that, and it's just easier to actually trigger some things. But I work with founders and CXOs like in two different ways. One is if I work with someone on your team, I still help them with the strategy in terms of figuring out, okay, what's your audit? What have you already created? What's online? What kind of things are you talking about? Okay, why was it? And actually what would success look like to you if more people knew about you? And of course then your company. And then as I'm talking to them, I realize, okay, we have this IPO coming up, or we have a product suite that's like expanding and we want more people to figure that, to know about it. Um, and from that, I have a pretty thorough onboarding where I collect a lot of information already from them, which, their background, what what their subject matter expertise is, all of these things. And then we do develop the framework in terms of like, these are your biggest content pillars and these are your themes. But then also, here is some questions, right, to help the writer actually get, kind of connect the dots of like, this is what you can ask so that you get insights and like extracting things that are specific for this purpose. So, um, I don't really believe, it's not that I don't believe in templates. It's not really to templatize everything, but it does help because to have a, organized conversation, that does help. And there are some things which are like more personal anecdotes. And then I help them kind of review their content and really plan it for the next quarter and so forth. And everything is like aligned in terms of like what they want to achieve for that year, all of that.
Yeah, I agree. That's a great approach. I mean, you gotta start with the text because it's, the easiest thing to prepare from that standpoint, like video, everything else, especially if it's the founder who, really care about their presence and how do they
Yeah,
look and all those things. And especially if you have somebody who is an introvert, that can happen in SaaS and in tech companies. So
yeah,
they don't want to go on a video. And so from that standpoint, it's good to start with text. Then if you have a chance to develop, a different content in time, sure, but let's
yeah,
start with something and get that to the level, as high as it can go.
yeah, absolutely. And I see a huge benefit to having video. It does create for sure quicker brand recognition. It's just normal, right? There's a reason why so many people are adding pictures and images on LinkedIn. It's just because, if you're seeing someone often enough and you're pairing it with actionable, useful content, which is the part that many people forget. Not just because I have my
Hmm.
picture all over or my video, but I'm saying nonsense or my content is not really useful that I'll be memorable. But when you do both, it's extremely powerful. So I have worked with some founders where we've added video later on. There are some ways, I've even recommended a lot of tools that can help you do that, right? As we're having this conversation, the great thing is, you can ask the right question, transcribe at the same time, and pull things. But really, the medium matters less than having the right strategy and then figuring who am I talking to for what purpose. But I know you're great on video, but everyone can't be Nemanja. So
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I had to because, like,
mm,
I think 7 years old, 8 years old, when I started playing basketball, my father was a basketball coach and he was my coach and I was the captain of the team. So everybody else could say no when it comes to talking to the media. I wanted to say no as well, but I didn't have
mm,
a choice. Right. So then you learn
yeah.
in time.
Nothing like stress to make you learn quickly, right? Like nothing like pressure.
Exactly, especially in those early years,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So yeah, it kind of happens. I mean, but I always tell to the people, you get better in time as you keep doing. Like my first ever video in English is on YouTube. Actually, somebody
Oh,
recorded it, and when I listened to it's from 2013, I think, on a youth conference, something like that. But when I listened to it, like my level of English at that time is like I don't want anybody to look at this. But the conference publishes, so I said, okay, doesn't
yeah.
matter because like I was talking about collectivism, and then I asked them, do you want me to continue talking? And they say yes. It was you know the last speech before the lunch. And they say
Oh,
yes. So I told them the story involved the ex-girlfriend. It's non-existent one, but some of the people even up today when we meet they say I think you can remember that that person doesn't exist, because I knew how to tell stories, right? No
yeah,
matter if my English wasn't perfect, but they understood it.
yeah.
And from that point, yeah, when you know what you're talking about, you just continue and you get better in the way you present those things.
Mm, yeah. And stories, right? I mean, I really emphasize that it's good that you mentioned that because with a lot of the founders and in general with like founder branding, personal branding, there it's really powerful to use stories, whether it's like, their personal stories, customer stories, team stories, companies, there's like a lot of, like origin story. And then again, connecting it with like pain points of your audience. It's extremely powerful. And those are the things usually that get mentioned when they go to like a tech conference or when they're having their review with their board or they're talking to an investor, which is like, oh, whoa, you were raising, peak pandemic and then this thing happened. Yeah, like yeah, I remember you posted that 2 weeks ago. So just like a nice round with your ex-girlfriend non-existing story.
Yeah, yeah. You can use, I mean, content and the founder's brand for a lot of stuff. Like even increasing the lifetime value of your customers. They see, aha, you've been working with that with another customer. Maybe we can go and try this on our own example or a lot of different stuff. But maybe you can tell us a couple of examples of from your work, how you use storytelling in that as well.
Yeah, sure. I think it's all about also like framing the questions. Let's take us a step back. Sometimes while I'm having um, these strategy calls or content calls with founders, they'll mention a fact, right? Like they'll say, I really wanted to build this company because I was working in sales and then I realized that people were struggling with, I don't know, collecting appointments. I'm just saying random stuff, right? And then you're like, tell me a bit about that. Where were some situations where you really remember where someone was struggling or you were struggling? And then they'll pull the story. And then with that story, which, will have like a hero's arc, there's a lot of frameworks that you can use. That really doesn't matter. Like anyone that has heard good storytellers will know, okay, something happened, you were stressed, and then you found something and etc. And then bridging that story that they tell with where they are right now and kind of shows this transformation, which can evoke different emotions, right, from people. Um, and then they will realize that after posting regularly on these things, once they're getting a lot more feedback on it, people are reaching out to them internally on their team and whoever, they realize, okay, I actually want to provide more stories. So sometimes from the writer, I'll see stuff in the Notion or whatever, which is like, we should talk about this, right? Because they then see that it's actually really working. So um, we don't have to always overcomplicate things. Some things are quite natural, and sometimes you have to dig a little bit more to get those anecdotes.
Exactly. I mean, I had a lunch today with a guy who is like leading the DevOps team,
Hmm.
and like, extremely hard to sell, but everybody needs it, right? From that standpoint. And he was like, I'm the one man team when it comes to sales. I need to develop that part, but I managed to sell like a team of 40 people, right? They all have jobs, working for different companies, working on different projects. And I did that just by, messaging people on LinkedIn. And from time to time, I post something, and I was like, you know, for some industries, you don't need to even tell a story that often, right? You need to show what you are working on. Like, this is the
Yeah.
product that we are building. This is how it goes. Meaning, like, I have the team that knows what they are doing from that perspective. But one thing I want to get your head around is, how do we merge the founder's brand with the rest of the company, or the people who are, becoming active or want to become active, and basically, taking that to another level.
Mm. Just so I understand your question right, what do you mean by merge? Is it in terms of, yeah, maybe, what do you mean?
Yeah, I mean, like the founder maybe, starts posting on social, and building his own personal brand, but then he wants to involve other people from the company, right?
Yeah,
Or it was their initiative, no matter how it is, and they want to have build that, and then on top of that, they maybe add advertising or ABM or some kind of different programs,
yeah,
and they want to have it all together.
yeah, yeah. Great question. And I think if we take the, if we zoom in on, if it's just like the founder wants other employees, right? I think sometimes the issue comes with the executive team or the founder wanting it to become employee evangelism purely, which is then they only want employees to post things related to the company, how great working at the company is. I don't think that's a great approach. When it comes, and usually the founders I work with, I really try to explain to them, build your founder brand. Of course, part of it is talking about your company, the origin story, how you're working there, but also add in things about you. And that is actually how you motivate your teams or your employees to start doing the same thing. And also, it's, talk about your experiences on posting, provide training, which there are very capable people that can actually come in and enable your teams. We both do that, right? To give them the right, a lot of issues, a lot of employees are like, I don't know what to talk about. I don't know what I'm allowed to talk about. I don't know what to say, how to say it, all of these things. So part of it is a responsibility from a founder perspective to, explain there is no censorship. You have to really, say it out loud. And if there is something that they are a little bit hesitant about, like really say that. But also, if you're able to provide the training for your employees, um, part of it will come naturally. Some employees will see their CEO or whoever posting, and they will actually be motivated. I've seen this happen time and time again. Um, it's very hard for, you know, to go from a purely bottoms up approach to say, you should just reshare this post that was posted on the Slack channel for the marketing team, but none of the founders are actively posting. But see the difference what happens when they are actively posting, and adding images and showing things about their personal life and the teams as well, that will do the same thing, the ripple effect. So um, that is kind of how they can merge having other people posting.
Sorry, I was thinking of one thing, and usually it's when we look at LinkedIn and we look at the company, and I always like to say that is, what we see out there are people posting. Is the founder active? What they are talking about? Usually it represents the state of the company, or what's happening inside the company, right? Do they
Yeah,
have permission to talk about the things? Is the
yeah,
founder actually a leader who is inspiring people, towards that? Or actually, do they have a team that is aware of the possibilities of building a personal brand, what can it can mean for them and for the company? Because I've seen that companies start with the program of activating people, and then it falls flat because
Yeah.
they do it because their boss told them,
Yeah.
right? And they can do it for like 2 weeks, even 2 months, and then they realize, am I doing this for me or for somebody else?
Yeah.
So from that perspective, I always like to say, I don't know if you do it as well. I like to check the culture and who's in the team if they really want to do this, because you need to hire for that.
Yeah. It's so true because one, if it falls usually flat because they realize that it's a pure company activity, which is done to then get more eyeballs just for the company. And it doesn't come from a sense of like it's actual employee enablement for the employees' benefits as well. No one has to lie. Everyone is an adult. They know that, of course, if you're helping, it's also for the company's profile to really, all of that. But you really have to add the twist of making sure that the employees feel like this is also helping their own personal brand. Long gone are the days where you can just pretend that you don't think your employees will leave. They will. They're not going to stick around all the time. Yeah, the family thing is nice, but again, we don't always have to think and only that way. So, I agree. It's a great company culture check, and I think in the next few years, just as people are checking Glassdoor for company culture reviews, I think people will start looking at who's on LinkedIn, like what are they saying? Like, do people seem happy from that perspective and check it? How many people are posting and what are they saying about the company? This is for sure on its way.
Yeah, I mean, it's becoming so obvious what's happening and how are people actually reacting to it.
Yeah.
Always use the example, like here in Serbia, we always thought like, engineers, people working in IT, they are people who like alternative music, who like good music, who are, on a different level culturally and, educationally and those kind of things. But then the COVID came and companies needed to hire a lot of people who didn't finish the university or whatever it is. They just finished like 3 months or 6 months course becoming a developer. And
Mm.
then, you get all kind of people inside the IT companies. And then when some of the founders started posting about, I don't know, they're helping the LGBT Foundation to kind of push through the laws about the rights of LGBT people. And then you look at the comments. Oh my God,
Mm.
then you see what's actually happening right below that post. You see, and I'm like, if I'm seeing people from my company commenting like this, do I really want them in my company? Do I really
Yeah.
know those people? What's happening? And I think that's one of the things that it's going to come. And actually, so far, it's been something that we didn't see because people can see everything that you do on LinkedIn. So people felt like they're going to restrain from commenting and from liking.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think it's interesting what you say sometimes. I mean, I think we can talk about the pandemic forever, but it really did change like how we hire all of these things. And I think in terms of like if we've seen also how LinkedIn has evolved in terms of like also showing your personality. Sometimes, maybe not for the good, but I think it reflects society, right? And I'm very happy that LinkedIn has moved away from being the super stuffy professional thing where if you post a picture with your kids or things that you do next to work, that is that is not that frowned upon because those things do matter. And you want to do, which company do you want to go to? Do you want to go to the company of the CEO that's only talking about the stock price, that's only talking about how well they did last quarter, about that they're going to this event, or do you want to see both, right? Someone that is like also showing a bit more of their human side. And I think thank God that most people want the latter, right? Like you're seeing a bit more of the person. So, but yeah, it's not all roses for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know how we ended up with talking about this, but anyway,
Yeah.
it's good. So tell me, what are the next things for you? That's what I would like to know.
Oh, what are the next things for me? I think it's probably which happens in any kind of entrepreneur's life. I've worked with the really amazing clients, and I've realized that really figuring out who I'm best meant to serve, that that I really enjoy working with, and also having highest impact for them. So I've realized that founders with a great and actually, the reason why I talk that I would love to focus more on founders and not just CEOs, right? Founder CEOs is that they have a great company origin story. They have amazing subject matter expertise. Like they know how the product works, how the company has been run, and really helping them you know, become that authority and really, extend their profile really brings me a lot of joy. So I think I definitely want to make focus on that, but also all of the frameworks that I've been working on in terms of like getting the right questions, you know, getting the right insights from people. I do want to package that some way because I can't work with everyone. And I think that could be really useful actually, either if you're not only just for like people that might be in ghostwriting, but also internal communications teams and companies that are like they have the talent, they have people that can write, but they're just like, I don't know how to get this insights from the CFO or the founder, and being able to actually package this to them somehow, whether it's like they can use. I do want to focus on that because I see an opportunity, and then so yeah, well let's see how that's gonna work out, but I that's what I want to do.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I always say you can help just, so many people. But if you create the frameworks, if you give it to people, if you create the movement, whatever it is, you will reach a lot more people through that instead
Yeah.
of just working, with one person at a time.
Yeah, 100%. So that's for sure a focus for going into 2024.
Sounds good. Sounds good. I'd buy those things. So
Okay.
count me in.
First sign up.
Yeah. Also, what did we miss? What we didn't say during this conversation? Probably a lot of stuff, but what's the first thing on your mind?
I think the biggest thing, not that we missed per se, but that I want to reiterate is for any founder that's a bit unsure about the power of publishing, about kind of extending their story online, like don't focus on the immediate marketing pipeline that will come for it. I would say stick with it, get someone that can help you, or do this internally on your own. See whether nothing materializes in the first 3 months, and then, make your own decision. But there are a lot of people that are in the I'm too humble post, like a team, which is like I'm too humble. I want to work in the shadows. I have a sales team, I have a business dev team, a marketing team. I don't need to be in the forefront. There are some that are like, I'm too busy. But are you too busy to generate, to create demand for your company? Probably not. So I would really say like invest in it. The sooner you start, the sooner you'll see results, and I guarantee that that's something you won't regret doing. So that's just one thing I want to say.
Yeah, I love that. You reminded me now of a guy. There is like probably there are two or three people here in the region who are like not all of them are actually the CEOs. One of them is head of board now. He was active on LinkedIn, posting things, being active in the comments, and then people started questioning like, is that
Right.
really him? Right?
Oh yeah,
Is
yeah.
yeah, is that really him that's commenting? And he created a video. Like when he
Ooh,
said,
very good.
like he's sitting on a sofa, talking as the head of board should. And he said, look, I have the only one job, and it is to come up with the vision. And to be able to guide the vision of the company, I need to talk to the customers. I need to find
Yeah,
out, are my directors actually doing the good job? Are my companies performing well? I cannot learn and find out information only from directors. I need to find out from the customers that we serve. So that's
yeah,
why I'm on LinkedIn. Maybe I'm not posting this video, but somebody is recording this video and posting it for me.
yeah,
Right. So
yeah. Very good. Especially like I love that. I would love to get his name later. Maybe you can send it to me.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, it's an interesting guy who was in politics and published the book and a lot of stuff. But somebody who basically sees the idea working in the world, comes up with that for our market, builds up the company, and then sells it,
Mm.
and then moves on from that. Now they are building the Serbian Amazon. They called it Ananas.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Love it.
kind of interesting. Yeah. Okay. So first of all, thanks for spending time chatting with me about all these things.
My
Second
pleasure.
of all, thanks for sharing the insights. Tell me and the people listening where they can find more information about you. Maybe when now they stop the episode, they go to the beginning, they listen again, they see
Hmm.
some things that they have questions where they can find you to ask.
Yeah, perfect. Best way to find me is on LinkedIn, Belen Wagaw. Send me a request, DM me. I'm happy to chat.
Yeah, that was clear, nice, and precise. Guys, you know now what to do. Go ahead and add Belen on LinkedIn, send her a message, send that you heard about her on Funky Marketing Show. I don't know if anybody did that ever, but let's try it out.
Let's see, let's see. I'm sure.
Let's see. Also, one thing from me that I always say at the end, don't forget to keep it funky. Bye bye, guys.